argued that violence might be a form of creativity.
The Clockwork Orange is groundbreaking on so many levels, especially about what it's saying about violence. I mean, it's a very controversial film.
Oh, go on! Do me in, you bastard cowards! We don't want to live anyway. Not in a stinking world like this.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
It's a stinking world because there's no law and order anymore.
You just weren't seeing movies like that. It's like, where did this come from?
Who is it, dear?
There's a young man here. He says there's been an accident. He wants to use the telephone.
Well, I suppose you better let him in.
I'm sorry, but we don't usually let strangers in. But
Sort of calling into question society at the time. In the early 1970s, I think it's a bit of a post-Vietnam film about our reaction to and our immunity to violence.
Right, Pete, check the rest of the house. 10.
And the movie's very stylized in terms of the way it presents violence. And I think that's kind of how he gets away with it. Because it's not being depicted in this sort of realist. I mean, it's a futuristic world. I don't think the violence is just simply gratuitous. It just shows violence in a way people had never seen before, in this sort of pseudo, surreal and sort of comical way.
This is the one.
John Borman's Deliverance makes a similar connection. Barry Lyndon wrote out of history and a second-ranked novel. Stanley Kubrick saw Barry as a modern man, projected back in time to the 18th century, immoral and empty of qualities except an ambition to rise in society, which he does, only to fall. The film is very beautiful, very bleak, very serious, and without any natural audience, which Warner's didn't seem to care about.
People like John Kelly thought that Kubrick was a genius. Find me another example of a studio that for 20 years said, we'll back a genius, when they weren't even sure the genius was going to make you money. It doesn't happen.
One of Kubrick's ambitions was to tell a story largely in images and not dialogue. This picture is as close as he ever came to realizing that goal. The Shining was born of a different kind of novel, a modern horror story. Writer and family become off-season caretakers at a resort hotel. He'll have plenty of time to finish that novel. Too much time, as it turns out.
I think the hotel is the cinema, and that Jack is the one person who's meant to be there. There were ways in which Kubrick may have felt he was Jack.
Perfect creative conditions create a brain-cracking writer's block. It's been known to happen.
How do you like it?
The Shining is grown-ups making a horror film, pulling the legs of the horror film all the time, making fun of it.
Great party, isn't it? Come out, wherever you are. Here's Johnny.
Whatever movies Stanley made, what I love about his work is they are completely conscious. You may like them, you may not like them, you may say, well, what about this, that, or the other thing? But, you know, everybody pretty much acknowledges he's the man.
It's the one film of his where I have had an immediate, direct, uncomplicated contact with the hero. My kind of guy.
I must say, even over a 20-year period, I think we did 4 movies. It was the greatest challenge and the greatest pleasure of my job. He was really genuine, very open, very warm. The rap on Stanley, he's a hermit, he doesn't ever see people. That's not the case. He saw everybody, except more often than not at his own home in the countryside.
When you went to his house, if you went there in the wintertime, even in the springtime, you had to keep your overcoat on. It was the coldest house I've ever been to in my life. Whether he had heat or not, I don't know, but he kept the house very cold.
Stanley never had to raise his voice, except to one of his daughters, maybe, creeping around with a 16mm camera.
What do we do for a living, ladies? Kill, kill, kill! I can't hear you! Kill, kill, kill!
He was thinking, I want to make a war movie, just to consider the subject, you know, without a moral position or a political position, but as a phenomena.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts? Didn't Mommy and Daddy show you enough attention when you were a child?
Kubrick never repeated himself narratively. He always repeated himself thematically. Matthew Modine is a walking billboard for the film's ambiguities. On his helmet, the phrase, "Born to Kill." On his chest, a peace button. Stanley Kubrick was a most obsessive of directors, but he was beloved by his often overworked, underpaid crews.
Looked like something, didn't it?
This image, Modine losing himself in the fog of war, is the dark essence of Full Metal Jacket.